I just got done installing this iDoing Android head unit in my 2020 STI, and it occurred to me that I have changed the head unit 4 times and I've done a lot of work to the sound system in this car. So I want to basically discuss all of the options that you have when you decide that you want to upgrade your head unit. And yes, I said when, because the stock head unit in these cars just do not do it justice. This right here is the stock head unit that came out of my 2020 STI. If you're considering upgrading it, I'm gonna walk you through anything from just keeping it and making it far better to upgrading it the traditional way to installing an Android head unit. This is the iDoing head unit. So why in the world would we want to replace our stock head unit? Right off the bat, I can tell you that this head unit is severely underpowered. It just does not supply a lot of wattage. And the speakers that come in the car are also not very powerful. And by the way, I'm talking about the bass sound system, not the Harman Kardon package, because the bass sound system is the one that's really objectionable in these cars. So very, very underpowered. And then the power that this puts out actually matches the crappy speakers that are in the doors. So it's a match made in heaven, but not a match that you want to have to deal with because it's just loud. It doesn't do anything particularly well. It doesn't do lows at all because there's no subwoofer in the trunk or anywhere. It doesn't do highs particularly well either. It does have tweeters, but they're not that great. And mids are basically non-existent. So this head unit paired with those speakers really doesn't do anything very well. Not only that, but the rear channel in these cars is highly attenuated. I've learned this the hard way a long, long time ago. That rear channel is considerably weaker than the front channel. So if you decided to make the mistake and connect an amplifier to that rear channel, you're gonna find very quickly that you're gonna have to turn up your gain quite a bit. Not only that, but the entire system has rolled off bass, which means that it'll start out with decent bass at low volumes, but as you go up in volume, the bass will not compensate. So the music will get loud and probably unbearable at some point, but the bass is not gonna match. So that's a problem. Even if you were happy with the sound coming out of this thing, you also have very limited customization controls, okay? There's only a 3-band equalizer on this, bass, mids, and highs. That's it. That doesn't give you a lot of room to tailor your different sources to your particular liking. And as is the case with most stock head units, you're not gonna have preamp outputs coming out of it. And you want preamp outputs in order to install aftermarket amplifiers and subwoofers to your car. So you're stuck having to add line-out converters or getting yourself an amplifier that already accepts high-level inputs from your head unit. So that's another reason why this sucks. Not only that, but because you don't even have those preamp outputs, you don't have dedicated subwoofer controls within the head unit. And that's a nice feature to have, to be able to control the subwoofer from within the menus in here. Turn it up, turn it down, do whatever you need to do to it to tailor it to your liking. You're not gonna have that with this particular head unit or most others. While it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it's not wireless. That's kind of rare. It does work fine. I didn't have much issues connecting my phone to it and using Android Auto, but it's not wireless. So if you wanted wireless Android Auto, then you need to either buy adapters or get a different head unit. Also, there's very limited functionality within this head unit, just a few apps that you can use. So you're not gonna have a lot of room there to mess with it. And one of the things that I hated the most is while it does have a USB plug, which you plug in your phone to it, if you decided to plug in a thumb drive to it full of music, it takes forever. So it became unusable to me. That's one of the big reasons why I did not want this head unit anymore. Let me know in the comment section if there's another reason that I may have missed why you might want to replace this stock head unit. But let's say that you want to keep the head unit for whatever reason. You want to keep the car 100% stock, but you do want to upgrade the sound system, the sound experience in the car. Other than replacing your speakers, which you should do at that point, there are things that you can do. The first thing you should do is consider adding an inline amplifier to the system. This right here is 50 watts RMS per channel. That's a lot of power for indoor 6.5-inch speakers. So you would literally take the speaker wires coming out of here, connect it directly into here, and then you would connect the speaker wires coming out to your speakers out through here. Okay, and that way this is going to amplify all of the frequencies coming out of here, and this is what's going to be actually driving your speakers. And you can set the gains, to your liking right here, and it's going to sound way more powerful. If you get powerful speakers, this is going to be the way to drive them because the stock head unit not going to provide much power. But before you even get to that point, you need to get an active line-out converter, because an active line-out converter is going to give you all the outputs that you're going to need, the low-level outputs that you're going to need to feed these components. So you're going to have 4 channels that are going to go to this. Your front and rear speakers, they're going to go to this, and this is what's going to amplify. And you're going to have a separate channel that's going to go to your amplifier that's driving a subwoofer that you can put in the trunk for those lows. Not talking about big, huge, 212s, just a 10-inch, anything back there is better than nothing, because you're going to have that fill bass that's going to sound so much better. And an active line converter like the LC7i, which I already installed, I'm telling you this because this is what I did when I wanted to keep my head unit initially. An active line converter like the LC7i also have bass roll-off compensation. So you're going to be able to restore that bass as you turn up the power. That right there is going to allow you to keep your stock head unit if that's what you want to do. You're still going to have to deal with all the other shortcomings, but at least your sound is going to sound considerably better. And when I did that, it really sounded like a premium sound system if you do it just right. But if you decided to upgrade your stock head unit and replace it with something better, you can do that by buying, a double DIN radio like this one right here. This is an Alpine ILX 650. It's a 7-inch radio. This is double DIN, which is the standard. So it's going to fit in a standard double DIN opening like this. And as you can imagine, you're going to need a bezel to match it. One of the cons of doing it this way is that you lose that nice stock look to it, because it's definitely going to look like you have an aftermarket stereo on there. And also you are limited to about 7 inches because that's the size of the opening, the double DIN opening. You can also get the single DIN ones that are half the size. There's basically unlimited options when it comes to regular stereos. The problem with doing this is that there's a lot of other stuff that you're going to need to make it work. So these are things that you should keep in mind. First of all, you're going to need a steering wheel interface in order for your buttons to work from the steering wheel with the stereo. That's because these are universal. So it would cost a lot of money for them to figure out every car that this could possibly go into and put in the circuitry in there to be able to program your steering wheel controls. So you're going to have to get that unit, which is going to be an added expense. You're also going to have, if you don't want to tap into wiring that's existing in there, you're going to have to get a harness, right? The harness is going to take a lot of the guesswork out of it. If you get a harness, it's going to be an added expense. If you don't want to get a harness, you can tap into the stereo wiring, but you're going to have to know what each wire goes to. So you have to get schematics to make that work, and it is a lot more work. So, harnesses are generally cheap. In fact, I have one right here. This is actually an advanced wiring harness that's made to work with a Maestro interface that allows you to do a lot, and up to and including, doing the steering wheel controls. But this is just an option. You can get the bare bones harnesses that literally will just connect to your car's plugs, and then you connect that to here, and then your stereo will work for the most part. But there are added expenses. Right off the bat, this is going to provide you a huge improvement in sound quality. It's not going to have rolled off bass. All your channels are going to play strong. It's not going to have none of that nonsense. You're going to have preamp outputs, and they're usually 4 to 5 volts, which are very strong outputs that are meant to drive amplifiers. And you can control those outputs and crossovers from within the menus in these stereos. So that's really a cool feature. So if you wanted to upgrade to an aftermarket head unit like this, just a basic aftermarket head unit, all that stuff that I just said would apply, but you can actually get a bigger screen than this. That was my last installation, which was a JVC floating head unit, and it was huge. Not only because the screen was already 10.1 inches, but also because it had a huge bezel. And there's a few reasons why I decided to do away with it, but the point is that the option is there. There are other smaller bezel floating head units from 9 to 10 inches that you can consider that literally have a base the size of a double or single DIN, so you would get the appropriate plate for that, and then the head unit would just float right over the dash and give you whatever size screen you need. Regardless of which stereo you end up picking, you're going to have a lot of benefits already over this. You have to ask yourself, which features do you need? Which basic features do you need? Because at the end of the day, if you get an established name brand like Alpine or Pioneer, JVC, whatever, you get one of those name brands, you're going to have top-notch sound coming out of them. I don't know if you'd be able to tell the difference in sound between one and the other, especially if you tune them properly to sound the same. They vary from $100 to $1,000 and more. So ask yourself which features you want, and then you can select one of these head units to do away with a crappy stock head unit. And this brings me to another point. Remember I said that when you do this particular installation, you end up not looking stocky. See right there, it doesn't look stocky. It looks like it's obviously an aftermarket stereo installed here. If you want to not have a head unit that looks like it's aftermarket, we have another option now available to us. This right here is the iDoing Android head unit. It's got a huge, massive screen that's 9 inches, and it's essentially a tablet, okay? All of the functionality that this radio has and that this radio has, this radio already has, plus everything else that you could do with a tablet or a cell phone. You can literally put a SIM card into this Android head unit right here and use it independently from your cell phone to do whatever you want to do. You can get a SIM card from, like, say, T-Mobile or whatever, and attach internet to it, and you can have internet on your car even if your phone is at home, and you can do everything that you can do on your phone, you're going to be able to do in this head unit. Browse the internet, go on YouTube. Not only that, but you're going to have the ability to customize the music, and it costs a fraction of the cost. The JVC unit that I installed, the floating head unit that I installed, cost 3 times what this did. It didn't even do everything that this one does. It's actually quite impressive what this machine accomplishes. Not only that, but everything that I mentioned that you needed in order to get a regular head unit to work completely with your car, you don't need any of it with this. You don't need any harnesses, because your wiring connectors that are already in the car are going to get plugged directly into the head unit right here. You don't need a step-down converter for your camera. It's built in. You don't need a steering wheel interface adapter. It's already built in. You literally go into the menu and you select what you want each of those buttons to do. It's already built in. You don't need a micro bypass adapter. You don't even have to get the bezel for it, because it already has the bezel built into it. So that's yet another expense that you don't have if you get something like this. Not only is the head unit cheap as it is, but it already has a lot of the expenses that you would have otherwise had to get with a more traditional head unit upgrade. And I'm gonna do a review and install video on it, but I wanted to just kind of get a feel for it, because it's such a simple installation that while I waited for my yearly dental cleaning, I was in the parking lot waiting for my appointment to start. I decided to connect it, and I connected it right there and plugged it in, and literally used it on my way back home after the appointment. And I was just blown away by the stuff that you could do. I stopped in the parking lot afterwards and started messing with it. It's just amazing what this particular head unit will do, and it does it while looking stock. And it has a 9-inch screen. So you don't have to deal with this. You don't have to deal with this. There's no need to compromise, okay? This thing is improving over time, but if you want something that looks stock, something that has all of the functionality of an aftermarket head unit, and much, much more, that's gonna be my next video. It's super simple, but there is a lot to go over. And I do feel like if you watch that video and you get this head unit, I'm gonna answer a lot of the questions that you might have right off the bat before you even contact iDoing to ask them for help, because I've already done that. So before the next video, I wanna tell you very quickly what my plan is for this head unit, so you know what to expect. This is not gonna be in the review video, but this is what I'm gonna end up with. I'm gonna install this iDoing Android head unit. I'm gonna use the preamp outputs of it to drive my inline amplifier right here. And then I'm gonna output my music from my inline amplifier to my speakers. Because if you've seen my other videos, I have very nice Alpine R series speakers, and no head unit does those speakers justice. So I'm gonna drive them with this. And then not only that, but I'm also using the preamp output for the subwoofer, and that's gonna go to an amplifier, and the amplifier is gonna drive a subwoofer. And I'm also installing a newcomer to the scene, which is this epicenter. So the output is gonna go from the head unit, and it's gonna go through the epicenter, and it's going out the epicenter into the amplifier that's gonna drive my subwoofer. It's not necessarily to get loud bass. What this is gonna do is gonna restore bass that's lost in music, that doesn't really have it or should have it, and it's been removed for whatever reason. So this right here is going to restore it. So I'm very excited to be doing that, and of course I'll be sharing videos once I get to that installation. But this is what's coming next for me. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you think about all this. If I miss anything with the stuff that this doesn't do, or if you wanted to know anything about anything that you see right here on the table, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video. Take care.